They go on Instagram and they preach like, oh, it's just hard work and cardio and diet and exercise. More often than not, there's more to it.
Your eyes were bright green and they pulled me into you. It's always summer in your arms. It's always summer in your arms.
Hey guys, welcome to my YouTube channel, Mary's Cup of Tea. So today I'm going to talk about something quite controversial, but I figured if not me, then who? So today's topic is going to be drugs in the bikini fitness industry. And by drugs, I mean stuff like steroids and stimulants that bikini competitors take to enhance their physique, appear leaner, smaller, tighter, more muscular, all that jazz. So the reason why I think it's really important to talk about this is because we see a lot of fitness competitors, especially on social media. So these days it's becoming increasingly popular. I personally have competed in 2 shows myself, and I've been pretty deep in the industry working for a lot of supplement companies, going to the events. I had a lot of friends in the industry who were both amateurs and really high-level pros. So I've seen the ins and outs of this stuff, and I promise you that the stuff you see is either A, not real, or B, enhanced through very detrimental methods. So I'm talking to you in this setting right here because 1, I want it to be very casual. I want to open up the dialogue for people to speak up about their experience. If you've ever felt poorly about yourself because you saw somebody look good on social media, or if perhaps you've experienced this industry, thought about competing, or even had some experience with the steroids and stimulants. So I've personally been in the fitness industry for about 2 years, either training for bikini competitions or competing. And since day one, and day one, I mean when I was 16 years old when I started this stuff, I have been offered steroids in order to enhance my physique. So I'm gonna go through some of the things that are popular amongst bikini competitors. And after I'm done going through some of the popular ones, I'll tell you guys what I personally did and the effects that I faced with it. And yes, this is the first time that I'm coming out talking about what I took, what I did, and what my experience was with it. So stay tuned, I will get into my personal experience more. But first, let's talk about some of the things that are pretty popular. So the first one that comes to mind for me is Anavar. So from what I know with Anavar is it's supposed to make you really, really muscular, and it's supposed to enhance your muscular performance in the gym. So when you're training, you're gonna be able to lift heavier weights, and bikini competitors like this because the heavier weight you lift, the more fat it burns, thus the more shredded you get. And it's the first one that's on this article. So it is the most popular amongst women, and it says that women use this drug to help build and maintain muscle, especially while dieting down for a competition. And with that being said, it can cause virilization, which is development of male sex characteristics in women even at low doses, and as well as it's very toxic to the liver. So just an FYI, all this stuff is so toxic to the liver. That's probably the first place that gets hit really hard. And that is very dangerous because you cannot live without a liver. So the second one that comes to my mind, and it's very personal because this was the first thing that I was offered when I was just 16 years old training for my first competition. It's a steroid called Arimidrex. So I can never get the pronunciation right, but it's like R-I-M-I-D-E-X. So what Arimidrex does is it blocks the conversion of testosterone to estrogen. So basically you'll have a little bit more testosterone, which is the one that's fat burning, and less estrogen, which is the one that is fat storing. So clearly none of this stuff is good, but to put in perspective, I was 16 when I offered this. I was training for my first ever competition, and my coach said that I wasn't lean enough to step on stage. So about 3 weeks out, she's like, well, we can put you on Arimidrex and it'll lean you out like that. I'm personally very particular when it comes to putting stuff in my body. I'm not even on birth control. I always think like 5 times before taking over-the-counter medication. So anything like this always sets off my radar. So when I was 16, good thing I had my wits about me. I politely declined. I was like, no, you know, I'm just gonna train hard because I don't want to burn any bridges. But in my head, I was screaming, I'm like, this isn't right. Like, I am 16 years old and you're offering me drugs. So another one that comes to my mind, and this one I know about because I had a couple of friends that did this, is T3. So T3 is a thyroid hormone, and basically it messes with your thyroid in order to make you burn more fat and therefore leaner. This is one of those things that it sets off a chain reaction, and it can mess with so many other hormone regulations that I personally stay far, far away from that stuff. It says research shows that high thyroid hormone levels are linked to muscle dysfunction, lower glycogen levels, and reduced enzyme activity, which are not good things for athletes. T3 abuse by physique competitors is also known to cause severe metabolic damage that can result in excessive weight gains after cycling off. So I have seen this happen. Basically, a competitor comes off their T3, and besides the fact that they're binge eating because they're so deprived, see other video, I'm gonna link below. Basically, they're gaining a lot of weight, they're binge eating a lot of food because you've just been dieting for so long, and everything is just completely out of whack. So it's actually really sad to watch people go through this, because on one side you think that it's you, like you think like, oh, I'm binge eating so much, which is why I'm gaining weight, but you don't realize how big of a factor your hormones have to play in it. So I paused the video real quick because I wanted to look up this one anabolic steroid that I've seen amongst especially bikini pro athletes, and that is called Winstrol. So it says Winstrol is an anabolic steroid to get lean and hard. Apparently, it's pretty cheap. It's a cheaper alternative to Anavar. So I did talk about Anavar earlier. Last but not least, this one is probably the one that's gonna spur the most controversy, and that is Clenbuterol. So Clenbuterol, or its street name Clen, is the one I know most about because this is the first time I'm coming out and saying this, but I did do Clenbuterol for about 3 weeks before everything came crashing down. So Clen apparently isn't a steroid. So that's why a lot of bikini competitors especially argue for it, because they're like, well, it's just like taking any other fat burner. And I won't get into this debate right now, but I will say that fat burners are very harmful, if not just as harmful as Clen. I don't think that one is better than the other. I just think that they're both shit. So basically, it's not a decision between, do I take harmful fat burners that aren't even regulated by the Food and Drug Administration, or do I take this thing that's a steroid that's apparently not a steroid, and you can fight that all you want. But Clenbuterol is a steroid-like chemical that was initially developed to treat asthma in horses, working by relaxing the airways in the animal's lungs. So it was an asthma drug for horses, and then at a very low dose they started giving it to humans because it cleared out the passageways. In US it's outlawed, however it is available in Canada. I actually have seen it at the natural markets, but it's sold in very low doses and there's a limit to how much you can buy. So I took it because I read that whole thing about Clenbuterol is not a steroid, it's just a stimulant, it's better than any fat burner on the market, it works faster, it's cleaner, whatever that means. And so I was like very desperate to lose weight. So I took 2 pills a day, one in the morning on an empty stomach with my coffee at about 4:30 before I went and did my fasted cardio on the treadmill, and then I would take another one a few hours later. And oh my gosh, I remember at that time I took a beginner's accounting course at university, and that class was at 7:30 a.m. So at that point I woke up at 4:30, I took the pill, I had a bunch of coffee, and then I did one cardio session for an hour on the Stairmaster. And my heart rate was so high that by the time 7:30 rolled around and I was sitting in class doing my accounting and my hand was like shaking, I'm sweating because this stuff speeds up your metabolism. And so I was sweating like crazy. And I remember like my focus, like I was really focused, but I couldn't get anything done. I don't know if that makes sense. So it's like I knew exactly what to do, and I was so like hyper focused that it got in the way because I was trying to write too fast and I couldn't. My hand was shaking. I remember when I was moving to Canada, I was cleaning out all my old notebooks and textbooks, and I found my old accounting notebook, and that whole notebook, it's like chicken scratch. Like all of it's like all shaky and weird. So that happened. And then during cardio, you literally go so hard and so fast that it feels like your heart is beating out of your chest, and it doesn't even affect you. Like you're like, you know when your heart beats really fast and you kind of feel it in your brain and you're like, I gotta stop, like this is beating too fast and it's a little bit overwhelming. It's like that, but you like don't stop. You just want to keep going, you want to keep running, you want to keep doing more. And so it was kind of like this place where I'm gonna do whatever it takes just to be lean. And that's a really sad place to be in, because like there's so much more to life. And now I always say that your best weight is the weight you're at when you're the happiest. And back then I wasn't the happiest. I was taking random stimulants and supplements, and on top of all that stuff that I just described, I was also having fat burners, which, like I said earlier, those are not FDA regulated, so that's the stuff you buy at GNC. You don't really know what's in it. I was taking so many like protein powder supplements, which same thing, not regulated. You don't know what's in it. You don't know the quality of the product. So much coffee, all kinds of stimulants and things that were really hard on my body, and that was on top of weightlifting 1 to 2 hours a day, as well as doing an hour of cardio, doing that multiple times a day for an extended amount of time on my little 16, 17-year-old body. That's a lot to bear, and it's very detrimental. And one thing I do want to note is I remember I was at, I think it was an event, like something like the Arnold or the Olympia, and I was looking at a lot of the girls that were sponsored by certain companies, and they were there as like fitness models or whatever, and I'm looking at these fitness models that I've seen on social media, and I remember I turned to my friend and I was like, oh my gosh, like how do they get so ripped, blah, 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 and he shrugs and he's like, of course they do drugs, like they all do drugs. And I couldn't believe it, because I was part of the bunch that was like, no, like you can achieve that body naturally, there's a way to do everything natural, and there is. And there are certain people with certain genetics that do have one of those freakishly shredded, low body fat type bodies, but that's not most of us. And for most of us, that's not healthy. So when we see these bodies on social media that look almost unreal, and you're like, how do they do that? And then they go on Instagram and they preach like, oh, it's just hard work and cardio and diet and exercise. More often than not, there's more to it. So I hope this video shines some light on what goes on behind the scenes of these bodybuilding competitions, and I hope you think twice before admiring somebody on social media, because like I said earlier, your best weight, your best body is the one you have when you're the happiest, and I can't stress that enough. So if you would like extra coaching or support from me, reach out down below. I will link my email as well as my blog if you want to read more. And as always, please like, comment, and subscribe. I would love to hear from you, your thoughts, feelings, opinions, even if they disagree with mine. So please comment below, and I will see you guys next week. Bye.
Look at me now, I guess the doubt